Welcome to Political Misfits on Radio Sputnik, where we bring you news, politics, and culture without the red and blue treatment. But first, I want to start here. An article was released this morning discussing Bernie Sanders' task force and quote-unquote progressives pushing Biden to healthcare, screaming there's room for him to move. Now, as a flat fact, the answer is yes. If Biden is starting at a 4, let's say, on a ruler in regards to healthcare, well, yes, but as a flat fact, he has room to move to 10. But so does Mitch McConnell has room to move. So does Obama. So did Hillary Clinton. None of those people are going to move. Just because you have room to move doesn't necessarily the person is going to move. The catch becomes, what do you have to push them? It sounds like you guys are on your begging knee without anything to compel, anything to push, or anything to offer. And just because you're giving them your support that you gave in the beginning, that they're going to do something nice to you and throw you a bone. 40 years. It's been 40 years. You've used this particular failing strategy for 40 years. The battered wives of the political space, the lefties, hollering, if I keep digging, at some point, we're going to get to China. You're not going to ever get to China while you are digging that ditch. I'm sorry. That is not how politics work. You're being a bill of goods as a token gesture to con you into voting for somebody that in no way has your political interests at heart. Each and every one of those Democrats were willing to crash and burn by ripping that nomination from Sanders at a brokered convention if that meant stopping Sanders, even though every last one of them knew it would lose to Trump. That's how much they're against you. And if they're against you to that tune, to that degree, where they were literally willing to lose to Trump, if you're so terrified of Trump, how are you ever going to get anything accomplished? The boogeyman is always there to scare you and to con you into voting for them. That same boogeyman, however, that they were ready to allow to gobble up the party if you just so happen to get more delegates. What you are doing is not working. That is not how politics works. Begging on your knees is not going to get you what you want in a political space. And the problem, to some degree, is that with Sanders flaming out, the left is in some disarray, not necessarily know what to do, with 51% looking at a third party potentially, and the other ones cowering back into the space in the arms of the Democratic Party. Take a listen to Biden's message. Biden gave a message yesterday on increasing the minimum wage. This is I want to make my point. Let's listen to the clip.
I want Donald Trump to look one of these essential workers in the eye, the meat packers, delivery drivers, healthcare workers, grocery store clerks, and tell them they don't deserve a livable wage, paid sick leave. This is all about, as my dad would say, you see, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about being treated with respect, the recognition. These people put their health and lives at risk, so the rest of us could be safe and fed. Has to be made clear.
What an empty clip. What an empty clip. Bernie Sanders has been going out there giving one clip day after day after day, giving very specific policy proposals about the things they want to do. Joe Biden, another empty clip. What about healthcare, Joe Biden? Do people also, who you say should deserve a living wage, whatever that means, do you also believe that those people deserve healthcare? Medicare for All was popular. It went up 9 points over the course of the COVID-19 virus. Even in the middle of a pandemic, you're still against individuals having healthcare. And by the way, the healthcare costs is eating into that livable wage that you are talking about in this particular video. Medicare for All will be the largest pay increase in a generation, literally. So if you're talking about helping those people, then this is where you need to go. Now, this is kind of my point. You won't hear that argument by lefties. You won't hear that argument by AOC or Bernie Sanders. You won't hear that argument by anybody in the Democratic Party. For the moment, remove yourself from politics or move people from politics. Think for yourself, if you were just sitting above it all of you in this kind of grand game chessboard, and imagine yourself as one of groups of millions of people that decided we want Medicare for all. We want an expansion of Social Security. We want to get rid of student debt. We want $15 minimum wage, or at the very least a livable income if that's higher than $15. And we also want the end of money in politics. This is what we want. This has been decided. 10, 20 million people, grand arena. This is what we want. Now, After you figure out this is what we want, the next question is, what do you have at your disposal right now to get what you want? Can you do that in the party? No. Then if you can't do that in the party, why are you functioning in the party if what you really want are those policy proposals that we just agreed upon in the grand arena? Last question. What are you willing to do to get your objectives accomplished? And this is where the left fails, because their answer is always in the context of the Democratic Party as opposed to working in context of just those policies. These policies are the most important thing ever, and everything else is subordinate to getting these policies done, which means that even the parties themselves become subordinate to you getting your policy agenda accomplished. What do you want to do? Function in a party, or do you want to get your Medicare for all? That answer is never going to take place entirely by the party structure itself. It never has. It never will. How do you get people to do things that they don't inherently want to do, especially when it goes against the established order of that particular party? It is counterintuitive. I know, essentially, especially since the way people have operated over the last 40 years is to basically give their support for nothing in return. But if you want to do something and you're expecting a different result by doing the exact same thing, that is the definition of lunacy. Your power, your capacity in this process right now is organization, meaning all of you on the same page ideologically with the capacity to make them lose. Even though you may be in disarray, and even though the person you had as your Hail Mary flamed out, you are still ideologically bound under this notion of the policy proposals that you agreed upon and you wanted to do. Whether Sanders is in it or not is irrelevant. You still have those ideas, you still agree with those policies, and the American population also agreed with you on many of those policies. On the policies to which all of you agree, stand under that banner of that policy. Ignore those parties. This is your only way to salvation. Right now, Joe Biden is under a sexual allegation. He is under all sorts of pressure. Your response should not be to lump into a guy that is under that pressure. Your response should be to say, this is what we want, and you are not getting our support without accepting these policy proposals. Take it or leave it, with the understanding that you have the capacity to make them lose. And accept that capacity. Accept that as a strength. Don't take that as a weakness where you're getting browbeaten. Oh, you've made our candidate lose. Yes, because your candidate wasn't willing to accept these policy proposals that are popular by the American public. If you believed that Donald Trump was such a menace, then accepting this concession was right in line with what you were telling these people about how bad Donald Trump is. You, as the left, stand under policy. Stop functioning from the concept of these parties. Start functioning in the concept of these are the policies that we want. We are standing under this banner, and we are going to be unmoved in a sense of solidarity. That's your pathway to salvation. That is your pathway to winning. Biden is going to lose anyway. Get something out of it. Bob, it's funny. I think I'm sounding a little bit more like you on the organization front, but I do think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're sounding a little bit like me 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I really think, in retrospect, and I'm curious, Jamarl, for me, this is the exact same conversation people should have been having in 2016, and I think obviously I had my hopes up that somehow Sanders would be able to break through, but I surely didn't get involved. It wasn't door knocking for any Democratic candidate, regardless of Bernie Sanders or not. But saying 4 years ago to Democrats, don't fall for it and be brought back into the Democratic process. And so I'm glad you're on the same page of where I am now. And obviously people have been there well before I was ever there at any point in the past. But I think it's super important to recognize that a lot of people have been organizing against the Democratic Party for 40 years, as you mentioned, since they've really gone into this full neoliberal public privatization model that they have across the country that's been completely destructive to communities, and people just need to stop buying it. The Democrats, and this is why we can talk a little bit later in the show and over the next few days, Joe Biden's Lift Every Voice plan that comes out, these people come up with the greatest sounding policies. And here in Washington, D.C., the Democratic mayor, we're going to end homelessness here in the District of Washington, D.C. She said that. It sounds great. Everything sounds great when you say it. We care about black people. We care about ending poverty. We care about all this stuff. We care about all these policies, Jamarl, and yet time and again, they don't actually put those policies forward whatsoever. And people need to turn away from the Democratic Party. I don't think there's room for compromise. I don't know what say or power Bernie Sanders has. What does Bernie Sanders say? His people have left him. they've obviously split off internally. Externally, people can make up their own minds. These people can be involved in the Democratic Party, which I don't think a lot of them will, or they can find third parties. People within the Sanders world of politics, I think, are pretty well educated, many of them. And I don't know what Bernie Sanders says to any of these folks to be able to leverage that power. And as you mentioned, Biden's kind of a sinking ship at this point. What leverage is there to even to enact with somebody who doesn't have much leverage on the political process themselves?
Well, the problem here is there are two problems. One is that Biden is under a sexual assault allegation. So assume for the moment that Biden wasn't under a sexual assault allegation. If groups of millions of people, this is kind of the point that I'm getting at. I know they think it's counterintuitive, but you can't get anything done in a party that doesn't necessarily buy your interest. How do you move people that don't believe in you? What you do is you have large numbers of people that stand under the banner that you don't get our support. Like, that's the 10 millions of people. And look, I'm not the only one who said this. Ralph Nader has made the same argument. You get 10 million of people pulling out the party, you have some level of leverage in the political space.
I agree with you on that front. I guess my point being, I think he's mired by so many sexual allegations right now, and that he's mired by his own past and his own problems, that to actually then forcefully move him on policy. I think policy talk is such a distraction and so far removed from what the Democrats are thinking on a day-to-day basis, that this whole idea of like pressure them on policy right now, I don't even think they're capable of taking in policy. I don't even think they're trying to write policy. I think it's all PR, it's all marketing, and it's all fundraising from billionaires. That's how they're spending their day. They're not trying to listen to the climate kids that are trying to save our planet. They're instead trying to raise more money. Jamarl, we could talk much more about all of that and more. We're here with